Welcome to Trenchometry. If you've spent any time in or around the trenches, playing offensive line isn't just blocking, it is chess at light speed. You're controlling angles while a 280-pound defender tries to destroy your running back. Every snap, calculate leverage, mirror footwork, anchor against pure violence. Miss one step and your franchise player gets flattened. We're here to discuss the most undervalued aspect of the game of football, the offensive line. Remember, you master the trenches, you win the war. Today, my guest began his football journey in Wisconsin, where he would develop a unique skill that is invaluable on the football field. He would attend University of Wisconsin-Stout for a season and then transfer to Wisconsin River Falls. He would perfect his skill at River Falls and eventually end up with the St. Paul Pioneers. This would open a door for him to move into the UFL with the Sacramento Mountain Lions for 4 seasons. After a rookie camp with the New York Jets, he would return to his native Wisconsin and take up coaching. He is the owner of Special Teams University, where he's passing his wisdom and experience on to others looking to perfect their long snapping abilities. You can find him on either Instagram at SpecialTeamsU or SpecialTeamsU.com. I would like to welcome my guest today, Mr. Kyle Stelter, to Trenchometry. Welcome, Kyle.
Awesome, Paul. Thanks for having me. It's always great to talk long snapping and to anybody that will listen.
Yeah, that can quickly change the game for you, without a doubt. We've always said your best offensive play is your punt. And so if you can't get it from the line of scrimmage back to the biggest offensive threat, then you're really at a loss right there. So let's get into this, because this isn't a skill set that we talk about or hear about a lot, and you kind of turn around. Like, I've gone to all-star games and coached in all-star games before, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, has anybody ever long snap? And you kind of turn around and look both ways, and one guy kind of sheepishly raises his hand and says, yeah, I did in middle school. And I said, all right, well, here you are. You're the long snapper for the punt team in the North-South Florida All-Star game, or, the Army All-American game is a little bit different. They actually recruit specified guys for that. So that's good. They had that forethought, but we didn't for the North-South Florida Army game, or North-South All-Star game, which put us in a bind for a little bit. But what are you looking for? What are some of the skills that you're looking for when you're trying to diagnose who's going to be a long snapper, who's going to be a good long snapper?
Yeah. So honestly, at this point in my career, I don't really have to go and find the long snappers. They come and find me. However, when I am talking with high school coaches or other coaches in the industry who want to develop a long snapper, typically a couple things we look for is the number one piece, somebody who wants to do it. If you take your best athlete and you tell them they have to long snap because they're the guy, they're the best at it, they have the most potential to be good at it, they might not be great because they don't put in the time, they don't want to do it, they're not going to enjoy that process of getting better at that skill. So usually, the number one thing we look for, find someone that wants to do it. After that, depending on where they want to be in their career, like if they are high school kid, just wants to help the high school team, body type is what it is. That doesn't really matter. If we're wanting to go after high school football and play in college or even professional, we're typically looking for maybe more of a linebacker or tight end build. Someone athletic, someone who can throw fairly well, who has good coordination, and that is fairly mobile with their body.
That mobility is something that translates into the coverage aspect of it, which is valuable at that next level, at the college level and the high school, or not necessarily at the high school level, but the college and pro level for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, mobility just to make the movement happen with the snap, to make it efficient in general, but the mobility to run well, to break down, to cover distances well, and just be in the right place at the right time, I think is a big thing that a lot of snappers might struggle with. To be honest, a lot of snappers kind of fall into the position because they weren't athletic enough to play their position at the next level, or maybe there was an injury that kind of sidelined them to only playing this one position. So sometimes you don't always get the most athletic guy that's snapping, but when they fall into that position and they fall in love with the process and getting better, sometimes we get to those guys that are great at snapping and can get the job done for sure, especially in the coverage and the protection piece as well.
So here's the rub in that you get a tight end looking dude or a linebacker looking dude in there for PAT field goal. Is that an issue? Do you want a bigger body type for a short snap versus the long snap? And short snap, to me, in my mind, being a PAT field goal versus a long snap being a punt.
Yeah, so honestly, it's a great question. And I love to talk about it because there's a lot of, I think, misconceptions around it. So when I was in college, my coach wouldn't put me in on field goal because I was only 6'2", 200 pounds at the time. And he called me the midget long snapper. I was too small to be in there. Fortunately for me, the other two guys weren't as good as getting their laces to come out.
Okay.
perfectly every time. So I got put in there and then never lost that job. So what we found out was even at the college level, you're going to get some contact, but you don't need to be a big dude to be able to fight off some of that protection. The refs are protecting you. You might make some contact, but they're not going to. It's not 1980s football where they're lining up and just rushing the snapper. At the high school level, guys aren't even getting touched typically. So from high school, doesn't matter. You could put in a receiver there and they'll be fine. College level, it helps to be a little bit bigger, but you don't necessarily have to be massive. At the NFL level, most of my guys are between, 6'1" to 6'5", 225 to 250. Oh, there's a range in there, right? So none of them are offensive line bodies, but yet they're holding off these massive 300-pound dudes coming through those A gaps. And a lot of it is technique more than it is burliness. So essentially, if you can get your body in a great position, just like, if you're a smaller offensive lineman, I assume, if you get yourself in a good position, you'd be able to get the job.
Yeah, that's in the high school game. I think of bigger guys so that you have longer edges farther away from the snapping point, and you get a short guy up there, and that you can have a fast guy off the edge, and he can get there. If somebody's 5'10" versus 6'2", seems like that distance at the high school level, at least from my experience, was something that was always we always worried about. Just those little at 6 inches, that last 6 inches is what seemed to always get me in my mind. But at
Well,
that
one thing
next level, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, and so one thing I cover with guys at every level is having a wider base on a field goal is important, not necessarily for you or your snap. It's necessary for the team. If you widen out, now everybody else bumps out. And so there is a limit to that. If I overextend and I'm super wide, now we can interlock feet and there's still a decent gap. So we kind of have to find that happy medium where like I could widen out really big and it might not help if I'm too narrow and everybody narrows down, that's not going to help. So we have to find that happy medium between kind of both those worlds. You could take, in my mind, I think you could take just about any frame to an extent and figure that out to get an optimal edge, essentially.
It's interesting because the wider you get, you also lose the mobility in your hips to be
Right.
able to generate the power to get the ball back there quicker too. So I'm assuming, like I always found that to be for me, but you being the topic expert there, correct me if I'm wrong there, but it seems like that's probably something you got to worry about too.
Yeah. So essentially, and this goes for punt and field goal, if you are too wide with your feet, on punt specifically, it's hard to transition whether you're blocking or transition into a run. And on field goal, if I'm extremely wide and someone touches me, my center of gravity is different. I'm more like on a teeter totter versus if I'm just outside shoulder with maybe a little wider than that, I'm a little more stout, a little more balanced in that position as well. So it's all about finding that happy balance. And depending on someone's height and their build, that is going to look slightly different from athlete to athlete.
And I say all that, and I confess to you that my youngest son was our long. Both of my sons snapped for our high school and our program, and my youngest son was probably about 6'1". Oh man, if he had 5 rolls of quarters in his pockets, he was about a buck 68 if he was lucky. So he was just a little piece of linguine in there snapping the ball, but he managed to get it done. All right,
Well, there
so
you go.
we got this athletic frame. Let's just call it that for the sake of argument. This athletic frame, and what's the first skill set? Like, how are you developing these guys? Like say a freshman guy in college comes to you and says, "Hey, I don't have a future here. I can't hack whatever it is, but I want to stay, and they need a long snapper." How are you going to go about breaking this guy in? And let's say he played baseball in high school. He has some of the basic skill sets that you're going to need. Where are you starting him off at?
So essentially, the very first thing I like to look at with guys is how they hold the ball and how they release it. So there's a lot of different information about how to do that online or from other people. Essentially, what it comes down to is the more balanced you can be, the more consistent you can be. So I always tell guys if you start balanced, you can end balanced. And if we can end in a balanced position, it's going to drive your ball to the target, kind of like a jugs machine. So we imagine those wheels spinning. If they're the same speed, same pressure, that ball's going to pop out pretty consistently, straight and fast, and with a good spiral. If you, let's say that you just go and YouTube long snapping, there's different grips, there's different things you can do. And I always tell guys, there's many ways that you could grab the ball, throw the ball to get it to spin. However, there's a massive difference between effective and efficient. So what I coach with athletes isn't just how to get them to get the job done. I want guys to be the best they can be. So we start with efficiency. So we look at how to grab the ball, where the hand should be placed, how to create that spiral without forcing it. So I never want an athlete to try to spin the ball back. Their placement of their hands will drive the ball and create the spiral for them. So, big topics that we're looking at, the big three: balance, efficiency, and control. The first topic we're covering fits into that balance category. After we get these guys being able to understand their placement and how to get the ball to spin, then we're typically looking at the control piece. So we kind of skip over efficiency, look at control. What that typically looks like is, how do they need to finish? What should their body look like? What should it feel like? And I really like to have guys understand the what, why, and how in everything they do. The more knowledge they have about these things, the easier it is to understand and implement these techniques. While snapping may look like a pretty easy task, you just throw the ball back there. Pitching looks pretty easy too, but I'm also not great at it because I don't
Right.
work with a coach that teaches me all these little things that makes my ball go as fast as it can. Right. So
Hmm.
I like to break things down to then simplify it later. But when we look at control, we look at, how do we get the core involved? How do we find that end position? How do we create consistency in those positions? And then after we get those guys locked in there, then we go into the efficiency component, meaning, how do they flow? How do they move? How can they use leverage and centripetal force to build that throw without just trying to essentially work harder to make the ball get back?
So we got the balance, we got the efficiency. What was the third thing?
Control.
Control. As you're getting these guys situated, balance is a big deal. Don't want that ball, no weight on the ball, right?
Correct. Yeah. So balance can be thought of in a couple different things. We talked about balance for the hands and the release, but balance can also be in your stance. Balance can be a mental component that we're talking about. But yeah, when you're in your stance, we want your feet, so like the middle of your feet, to hold most of your weight. If you're leaning on the ball and then you throw it, typically you're going to be going forward, which is going to show me that you're not controlled and you're not going to be able to finish where you want to be at the end of the snap. So balance is absolutely a big piece of the snap that I think most guys don't think about until they have an issue or they need to think about it.
It's funny, last Friday, our team played another team from up the road on the west coast of Florida, and I went up to the game and watched. They had a center with a one-handed snap on the punt
Mhm.
team. Tell me, right, what alarm bells go off in your head immediately when I tell you that?
So at the high school level, get the job done. It is what it is, right? Like if that's who you got and he's good at it, you can be pretty good at something. And honestly, even going up through the ranks, I find a lot of college athletes who are pretty good at what they do, but have no clue how they do it. They wouldn't be able to teach somebody how to do it. They're good at it. They're athletic. When I see a one-handed snapper, the alarm bells that go off are typically consistency, control, and velocity. So they're going to be able to get the ball back there, but typically velocity is a little bit slower. And that control aspect. When I use two hands to throw the ball, if we go back to that jugs machine reference, both those wheels are driving the ball right where I point my barrel, is what I call it. This is going to be like the rifle, the barrel of a
Right,
rifle.
right.
If I'm throwing it with one hand, I throw it, it might push, it might pull, it might go high, it might go low. Maybe it's perfect, right? And so what I try to help guys with is, I don't want there to be variables if we don't need them, right? So you might be killing it with one hand throws, but you're going to be killing it until you're not. And then what's the answer? What is the solution to what you just did? The solution is going to be, how about, in order to eliminate that push to the right, let's get your other hand involved. If we're throwing it high, let's try to flick out a little bit more. So there's always kind of that cause and effect that I like to dig into with athletes, that I think is just lost on most, or they just don't know where to start looking for those pieces.
It's funny, I always say that I always tell 'em my guys that they could miss if you're using one hand, you can miss on 4 different planes. You can miss left, right, and up, down.
Yeah,
With
exactly.
those 2 hands, it seems like it's more just up, down.
Right. Well, and you know what? Sometimes it's hard to get through to an athlete who's having success with something. And I see that even with, like I said, I work with college guys who come in and they're decent, but they're not great. But in their mind, they've not had any failures. So they don't need to change anything. They don't need to fix anything. So we have to kind of show them what things could look like and could feel like, in order to kind of spark that drive to actually want to better themselves. So if you get a kid that's been thrown at one handed, he hasn't really missed. If you're like, hey, you got to put that other hand on because it's going to help. Why? Why is it? I haven't had problems. Why do I need to do it? So I think that's kind of the challenge of a coach is getting someone to see why something may be better for them.
Do you cover the mental aspect of it? It's, I don't know, late in the fourth quarter. You're on the 2-yard line. You're up by a point. 4 minutes left in the game. You got to get this snap off. That's a pretty heavy situation to be in. How do you approach guys? Do you talk the mental game of it as far as, or you have, is it like a golfer? You're approaching the ball, you have a mental checklist that you're going through. How do you get that component into your guys?
So essentially, yes, we do talk about the mental side of snapping and what that looks like. I'm really big on the more you build the fundamentals, the more you build the skill. The more you build the skill, the more you build your confidence. And going into any situation, no matter if it's the first snap of the game or the last snap of the game for the win or you're up by 100, it's the same snap no matter what. Oh, one thing that I always talk to guys about is, or especially I tell a lot of coaches this too. The last thing you want to do is right before your snapper runs onto the field is grab him by the face mask and tell him not to screw this up. Don't screw this one up. All right. Now I wasn't planning on it, but now that you've planted that seed, maybe I'm
Yeah.
thinking more, trying harder. So from a coaching perspective, not a great thing to do. From a snapping perspective, always trying to train your body so you can trust your body. So I was talking to an athlete the other day about there's a lot of snappers who maybe don't know a lot about what they do, but they go out there and a coach tells them, hey, you just got to go for it and trust it and just do it. Don't think about it. So my analogy was a lot of people golf. Paul, do you golf at all?
A little bit. Not
Okay.
very well, not very often. Being a football coach during season, there's not a whole lot of time. You get to
Right.
be a football coach or a golfer, as my wife told me, and you
Yeah.
pick.
This is perfect then because then you fit into the majority. So most people fall into that same category. They might like it. They might go every once in a while, but they're not great. Do you know why most golfers aren't great?
Time.
They don't have time. They don't train
Time
their
in.
bodies.
Yeah.
So the more time you get to train your body, the better you'll get at something. So imagine going out with a golfer who doesn't really know what to do and they may be decent, but they don't know how to swing each club differently or how to hit the ball right. And just telling them, just trust it. Trust what? What am I don't know what to do. So the same thing happens to a lot of snappers is they don't get any training. They get kind of the very basic ideas. And then the coaches tell them, just go do it. Don't think about it. Now, when we get to a higher level and the guys that I've worked with that we do train, we do want to not think about things and not overanalyze things, but it's their training that they're falling back on, not just this imaginary whatever it is, right? So we want to make sure that these guys are taking the time to study their craft, to perfect their craft. One thing I was saying that I use consistently is chase perfection. And that doesn't mean perfection in performance. All that means is we're chasing perfection in the process. When we install rules to movement, like a balanced start equals a balanced finish, um, an efficient movement yields a faster ball. Slow to fast, loose to tight. Like there's all these rules that I apply to the snap. Then they can just fall back on that when they go into those situations. There's nothing to think about or worry about. Go do it, make it happen. So it's kind of a little bit of both. We just need to make sure that we cover those fundamentals before we really dive into the mental game because we don't want to breathe ourselves to success if you don't have the tools to success. Or, you can calm yourself down all day. If you don't have the technical side of it down, you're really going to swing and miss probably.
Yeah, I was just thinking if you told your left tackle, "Well, just don't think about it. Go out there and block the defensive end."
Just do it.
It's pass blocking, just pass blocking. It doesn't work. It's funny you mentioned golf. I was talking to I knew a golfer, this a few years ago that was trying to get he was out of college and trying young guy trying to get into the profession of golf. And it was a good golfer. No, had the skill set. And so he'd gone to a tournament and performed terribly. And I was talking to him. I said, "Well, what do you attribute that to?" "No, I don't know. I wasn't consistent." I said, "Well, what's your internal monologue sound like as you approach the ball?" And he looked at me and said, "What are you talking about?" I said, You don't have something that you tell yourself like, you don't have a checklist that you go through or like a pilot, like a pre-flight checklist or something before you hit the ball?" So he said, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." I said, Dude, you played golf at, like, a high level in college and were successful. Like, the coach never said this is a pre-shot ritual or anything? No, so that's what I was kind of referring to. I was kind of thinking about that type of thing as a golfer going up to the ball, approaching the ball, how you would do you have a pre-flight checklist that you kinda get you guys through?
So every snapper does have kind of have that pre-snap checklist, right? A lot of times, a very basic level. So if I get an athlete that's brand new, we're absolutely working on like how to approach the ball, how far away you should be. Should you grab the ball and then look? Should you look and then like there's little details in that. However, once we get to a certain point, snapping becomes a reflex, right? So at one stage, you have to think about that process. And then on the other side of it, it just happens. So every once in a while, I'll have athletes who are pretty high level who we have to go back and think about their process. Like, I think you're missing this chunk in your pre-snap setup. Most of the time, it's setting their hips to the right depth and using the punter as a gauge to make sure they're in the consistent spot. But I would say most guys, they're coached that to death. Like that's the one thing they've heard is like, you got to have a pre-snap routine. Perfect. But that's the only thing they've ever learned. They've not learned the cause and effect, all the little detailed pieces. So I think that's one thing I typically almost skip over because everybody's got that. It's been beaten to death. So yeah, but it's great. And it's something that they should have.
What does the and I'm ignorant on this. I've never really I didn't pay attention when I was in college to this, and I honestly don't think when I was in school, our guys that were long snappers were playing. So they kind of did that as an additional duty. At the next level, though, you get into the professional ranks, and those dudes are pretty much just full-time snappers.
Absolutely.
What's their practice routine look like? What are they doing during practice? Everyone's doing 2.5 hours of practice. What's the long snapper doing all
Yeah.
that time? Is he upside down, looking at the world upside down for 2.5 hours, or what's he doing?
I hope not. So essentially, that looks different from athlete to athlete. One thing that I'm doing through special teams U and that the athletes that I coach is starting to build more awareness around what guys should or could be doing. Because
Mhm,
I do think there is a big section of long snappers who are just snapping constantly. So I think there's a big push for hey, if you want to get good at something, just do that thing. However, I'm really big on man, snapping's very monotonous. It's the same thing every time. I've had guys develop injuries because they're just doing the
mm,
same thing over and over every
mhm.
day. So I've developed so many drills that help guys feel the positions, feel the movements, practice their skill without just being upside down and ripping the ball. Just in the same way, like other sports have drills. Like my question to a lot of new guys for me, I asked them, "Hey, when you're at practice, what do you do?" And they're like, I snap the ball in the beginning, I snap some more in the middle, and then at the end, we do some more snapping. And then I say, "All right, what do the running backs do all day? Do they just run the play all day, or do they do drills and then they do the play and then they practice some other aspects?" And yeah, I mean, everybody's like, yeah, they do. The receivers, the line, everybody's got drills they do. And so then I turn that back and I say, what drills do you do? And most of the guys who are especially new to me don't have any. So I think a lot of times it's just maybe ignorance. They don't know what they could be working on or should be doing or how to work on it. So going into like guys that I've been training, if you go to a Colts game, for example, you'll see Luke Rhodes out on the field with a softball, with a band. He's doing different drills. You can go to watch Ohio State. Their starter, I've been training for a long time. He's got a soccer ball. He's working bands on the sideline. He's using his softball. So there's different tools that I've helped guys implement, and each one helps them focus on something different. So, for example, we use a softball for a grip training tool so they know how to drive and be even and balanced with their hands. We use soccer balls so they're not focused on the result, but they're focused more on the process and how things feel. We use bands so they're aware of how to build tension and how to use control. But at the end of the day, I mean, you could just go out there and rip the ball and wear yourself out and then go snap more. And you're going to get some progression through there. You're going to live and learn through that process. But when you understand the process and you apply drills and tools and knowledge, you can make bigger gains, as you go into that training process.
'Cause there's obviously different segments to the movement or different you can break the movement down into different zones, or I'm sure you have a term that you would use, phases, if
Yep.
you will, and you can strengthen and train the different phases of the snap. I'm assuming that's what you're
So
referring to with your drills.
Well, just like every sport where you throw or strike, baseball, throw a discus, use a golf swing, all of those have rules to the movement. If you create length, you create acceleration. If you create a block, you transfer energy. All those rules apply to us as a snapper. However, once again, if you go YouTube long snapping, if you talk to a lot of different people, there's a lot of miscommunication or just like not very efficient knowledge when it comes to snapping. I would say one of the first things I hear from guys is that they were told they need to slide their ball on the ground. If you watch any NFL player, no NFL player slides the ball on the ground.
Mm-mm.
There's a throwing movement, the elbows move, the hands move. There's a whipping a whipping movement to it, essentially. There's a lot of information about hopping or sliding back. Like if you don't do it, you're not going to throw with speed. If you look at any other sport where there's a throw or a strike, do you jump when you hit a golf ball? Is it good to be throwing on the run or throwing when you're planted? So that's a really easy cue for me to talk to guys about, hey, you're hopping or sliding back when you snap right now. There's no other sport where that's beneficial because you're not creating that block. When you create a block, you transfer energy. So that's been
And
kind of
let me
controversial.
interrupt for a second. That block would be the feet in the ground.
Yeah, the feet, the body just like bam, hitting a stopping
Hmm.
point and then the ball coming out. But it's been kind of controversial because there's a lot of other people who teach that religiously, slide back, hop back, get your momentum going backwards. But when I implemented that, it made such a difference. Guys were throwing faster with less effort. They were more consistent because they weren't falling through their follow through, you know? So there's just little details like that that are like scientifically proven that we can just like install and see almost an instant result from too, which
And
is
yeah,
cool.
and hone. If you just transfer from the weight room, like what do we as a football coach? I'm particularly an offensive lineman. I'm looking for the drills in the weight room that translate.
Yeah.
The there's certain drills, and one I would think the power clean for the long snapper, you're going to have those feet are in the ground, and you're generating the explosive energy from moving your butt back like it would be in a snap to
Right.
forward, right? That's where you're generating energy, and you kind of have that. I'm sure there's some Newton law there that we could insert. I don't
Right.
know. I'm not really good with physics, but is that am I on the right path there? Am I thinking the right thing, getting those hips moving as far as like a power clean and having both feet on the platform? That
Yeah.
type of
So
idea for the snapper?
there's definitely a lot of movements like a power clean or other movements in the weight room that can apply. I don't think it's going to directly be the same movement or skill, but there's things that they can learn, whether it's timing or how to fire their body or how to
Hmm.
use the ground up through the body. Even a power clean, if you don't flow from the ground up through the bar, it's going to be a lot harder. And as a snapper, we need to also learn how to flow from the ground up. It's not going to look and feel exactly like a power clean, but I do think there's skills that we can learn from there. Just like if you play multiple sports, you learn things from all those different sports that might help you in this sport. So I think there's a crossover that can be great that maybe isn't 100% necessary, but would be beneficial for athletes.
Yeah. What's the most overrated aspect that coaches harp on this aspect, and it's overrated in your mind as far as the benefit that it's bringing to the long snapper? Is there like a cautionary? This would be
Yeah.
a cautionary point for
I
people.
would say the biggest thing that I think a lot of guys struggle with is trying to be overly quick or overly aggressive with their movement. So typically, everybody wants a fast snap time. But in order to get that, we need to think about being smooth, accelerated, controlled, deliberate. What a lot of guys do instead of that, though, is they're trying to be quick, aggressive, get their hands from A to B as fast as possible, which, once again, we can use an analogy. If I'm trying to throw a baseball and I want to throw it 100 miles per hour, I'm going to work on my stretch, my acceleration, that block, and accelerating that ball all the way through that punch. If my mindset was flipped, almost like most long snappers, I'm just going to take this ball and get it on my hands as fast as I can. Even though I'm working harder, it's not going to create a faster ball. So I see a lot of coaches and even snappers telling themselves, be quick, have fast hands, be aggressive, almost to the point where there's like snot flying out of their nose because they're being so aggressive with their throw.
Mhm.
So once again, go to any other sport, swing in a golf club. The harder you swing doesn't mean the farther the ball goes. We want to apply the physics part of it. And I'm by no means a physics nerd. Just using some basic stuff here. A smooth, accelerated movement is going to allow you to be more recreatable, snap faster, be in better positions, and just have an overall better snap. So I think that would probably be the biggest one is like being overly quick and aggressive.
We always talked about you take a fist and you twist it as fast as you can while you're holding the fist, and then open that hand up. Which one's moving faster? The
Right.
tight fist or the open hand? The looser hand's gonna move quicker. You don't wanna be all bound up. I think of that when you're trying to, be fast from point A to point B, like, as you were describing. You're just kinda bound up, and it seems like it's
Yes.
that fist analogy. You're not loose, and the looser is smooth, and smooth is fast.
Absolutely. And the same thing goes for running. I mean, I remember I was
Mm,
never fast, but by any means, like running versus being relaxed with your hands through your shoulders definitely goes a long way too. So it's across every sport, but I just don't think some people see it in their sport because it's different. Long snapping's weird. It's different. I think a lot of athletes, it's so, well, let me back up. I think it's so understudied that athletes just don't know about it. People don't have the answers. People have maybe anecdotal evidence, like this is how I did it and it worked versus this is how, a lot of people do it efficiently. And this is like scientifically proven to help. So, we just got to look out for weeding through some of that information.
replicated over different frames, different body sizes, different body types,
Yeah,
different
exactly.
abilities. There's a framework that can be replicated and will fit, predominant majority of the people. Just most
Which
bodies are
actually,
good.
yeah, I was gonna say, which it kind of brings me to another point too. Is I think a lot of athletes go into snapping thinking I'm going to make the snap comfortable for me and make it fit to me. But there's also those rules. If we apply the rules to you, you may not look like me or the professional athlete or this college athlete specifically. But if you follow the rules, you're going to have those fundamentals, and then those fundamentals can build up into your skill, which might look a little different. But what I run into is guys saying, I grip it like this, pick any goofy way because it's comfortable for me. And my question to them is, how much money do you get paid to snap the ball right now? Typically, their answer is zero. So there's room to improve, right? Like if you're not at the top, then don't search for comfort, search for what's going to improve you. And I think that's just kind of a human nature thing. Everybody wants to be comfortable, find something that gets the job done and just make it happen. But if you want to be really good at it, if you want to pursue another level with it, comfort is the last thing that you want to be searching for.
I think the follow-up question to that should be for you, and how much money did the guy that told you to grip it that way get paid to teach people how to
That's a great point.
Okay, while it's on the top of my mind, before I forget to ask this, give me some good collegiate level snap times, short snap, PAT field goal. What's a successful guy that you're looking to when this guy's reached this speed or this time from snap to kick, what are some of those times? Your methods for measuring success there.
Yeah. On field goals, we don't time it. So honestly, we're going off of full operation time more than we are snap speed because it's hard. It's a short distance to time, so it's going to be a little bit more not unrealistic, but unreliable for timing that. So typically, what we look for is: are you consistent? Are you hitting the same spot consistently? And are the laces consistently popping up at the finish? Two things that we can absolutely control. So whenever I'm looking for success in that regard, I'm looking for an efficient movement, balanced hands, and that's going to create that barrel, the bullet, and that consistency aspect. So once we have that, the holder can be smooth, the kicker can be moving at the right time, and the whole operation can function efficiently.
So, I mean, okay, so operation snap to kick
Yep.
is the time.
Yeah. So from when the ball moves to when that ball's kicked off the kicker's foot, typically about 1.3 seconds.
1.3. Okay.
Yeah, so that's
Just
generally a good operation time. So everybody might give you different answers. 1.4, I think, is reasonable. 1.2, I think, is getting a little bit too quick, where your kicker might be rushing it. You might find an operation where like 1.2, everybody's good, they're smooth, nobody's rushed. You might find a 1.4 where it's good, but guys are getting a little close to blocking that things. From my experience, 1.3 has been generally an optimal number.
and that would be collegiate and professional?
Yeah, kinda wherever you're at. I mean, obviously at the high school level, you might be able to get away with a little bit slower time, but why? If we don't need to, if we can get your
Right,
snapper snap
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Like, so I would say I'm really big on holding everybody to a high standard. This is what the NFL guys are going for. We can achieve that as well at the college and even the high school level. So why not?
Okay, so then move into your long snap. Do you have a time for that? I mean, obviously all those
Yeah,
things are still gonna go. All the hands, balance,
yes.
barrel, bullet, all that's still across the board. What's your measuring device metric for the long snap?
So the general measurement is snap speed timing from the start to when the punter catches the ball.
Mhm,
Typically, we want to be in like a 0.70 to a 0.76 range, somewhere in
okay.
there.
And that's
Now,
at
the issue is
15 yards deep?
15 yards deep. Yep.
Okay.
And so the issue is some people snap at different distances, and that can throw that off. If you time the snap and you're standing by the punter, you're going to get a faster time. If you time the snap, you're standing in front of the snapper, you're going to get a slightly different time. If you're standing on the side, you might get a slightly different time. So there's some variables in there that
Mhm.
aren't extremely reliable. So if you're timing your snapper, make sure you're in the same spot consistently and you're timing from the start to the stop of the snap.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe like a kid hearing this would say, "All right, I wanna snap. I wanna be a long snapper for the New Orleans Saints.
Mhm.
What do I gotta do to get there?" And
Yeah,
you're snapping at 1.8, you need to drastically improve that down significantly
exactly.
as far as
Now,
the
the
goal
tough
goes.
thing is, too, there's a lot of other organizations who put on like camps and clinics. A lot of those times are a little juiced. So I get high school kids that come to me and tell me they snap a 0.65. I don't think they do because not even my NFL players snap that fast. So there's instances like that too where realistically times get morphed. I personally like to use a radar gun. So here in my facility, I've got a radar that's constantly running. Every ball that gets thrown, we see the speed. That way we can tell if we make an adjustment and it's beneficial, boom, that number just got bigger. Now we're snapping 35 miles per hour instead of 33 miles per hour. So it just gives us a constant metric. So if you have a radar gun, ball speed wise, 32 to 34 miles per hour is generally what my high end college snappers are at. A lot of high school guys are like high 20s, 28, 29 to 30s, low 30s. My top guys that are snapping the crap out of the ball can get up to 38 miles per hour,
Wow.
which which hurts. So
Yeah,
that's a fastball. So
yeah.
I would say that's not common, but it's definitely something that's achievable if you're 6'7", if you're really athletic, if you have all these mechanics in line, doable. Is it necessary? No. 34, great speed. That would be kind of like the ideal, like get there, be consistent, don't miss. That's where we want to live.
Those are good target marks just to have in your brain to know.
Absolutely.
So back to what is the most underrated aspect of snapping that you would say, I don't hear a whole lot of people talking about this, but this can prove to benefit whoever's using it a bunch. Is there one particular skill or aspect that you're going to coach that most guys overlook that you think really is worth the squeeze of the juice
Yeah.
to get that done?
I mean, to be honest, there's a couple things that come to mind. I would say one of the low hanging fruit that just kind of gets missed a lot is body control. Because so many guys are trying to hop or slide backwards, they typically lack control through the finish. So when I'm looking at body control, I want to see a snapper hit an abrupt stop, bam. So, like for a split second, everything hits like a freeze frame. It's not easy to do. It kind of sucks to do because you have to have like a contraction of the whole body, and that's going to cause that ball to pop and jump and go where you want it to. So, to be honest, even if I were to go snap a couple balls right now, because I don't train it, I don't do it as much as I used to, it's not going to feel good for me to do that. But when you train it over time, it should become more of a habit. But I would say that body control through the finish, just making sure they can hit an absolute stopping point, everything hits that firm spot. Otherwise, most guys are slinging the ball and kind of hoping to see where it goes.
What do you tell them the snap? You just mentioned the snap of the hands, the
Mhm.
snap of the fingers. What are you telling them to do with their fingers?
Yeah. So at the finish, I mentioned earlier, we don't want them to try to spin the ball. There's no like pulling apart of that ball to create spiral. What I'm looking for is the ball should be coming off your index fingers on both hands. and I want you to try to max out your wrists. So just like if I was shooting a basketball, I want to try to reach in the cookie jar and create this consistent bend in my wrist. If we can do that same thing with the snap, I get to an end point. If I close my eyes, I know that it's the same spot from rep to rep to rep. I can feel that. So it's creates a more recreatable position. It helps that ball jump off the fingers a little bit better, and it helps tighten the spiral as well.
That's that's something that I always told my guys I wanted them to point where they
Yeah.
want the ball to go, but I'm losing that last couple inches off of the follow through with the wrist.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, if you were shooting a basketball, you don't tell them to point at the rim. There's that.
Yeah, right,
So you can use that point analogy, but I would have them point with their wrist versus their fingers.
right.
Uh,
Okay.
and I've had a handful of guys come in recently who have been taught to point, and really what happens is they snap and then they fight it at the end. So they end up kind of ricocheting out of that follow through instead of just embracing it and just
Yeah,
feeling that punch.
let it go.
Yeah, kind of
It's
goes back to
almost
that
stop.
Louis component,
Yeah, it's stopping the violence too soon.
right?
Okay, cool. So tell me a little bit about the mentality of, do you see a common mental quality amongst the long snappers? And what I'm getting at is typically your offensive linemen are not right in the head. Characters that are just, there's something, they'll wear the same sweaty shirt 5 days in a row and not even think about it. Is that a characteristic of the long snapper as well?
That specifically is not a characteristic of a long snapper, but I would say there definitely are characteristics, and one of them I would say is the perfectionist mentality. A lot of the guys that I've worked with over the years who have been really, really good, they they want to be really good at this. They put in the work. They if something's not right, whether it doesn't feel right, doesn't look right, they want to work on it, and they enjoy that process of getting better. In the same way, you can find a gym rat who likes to go in the gym and put in that work constantly. They see the benefit of the result, so they fall in love with that process. I think that's one of the big pieces that I see throughout a lot of these guys that are really good is just that want, that desire to keep improving, but their focus is on the process and not necessarily the product.
So, and we're kind of winding down here a little bit, but if you had, there's some kid listening to this and he wants to snap for his high school team, what would you tell him to get a couple footballs and find a target on the wall and just start, I would maybe look at some videos and then
Yeah.
start working on accuracy. Like where should they start?
Yeah. Honestly, I would say most athletes start off with snapping in the backyard with a family member. Go grab a ball, see if you like it, right? Like I think a lot of this comes from when you have success with something, you tend to like it more. I didn't like long snapping when I was in high school. I intentionally screwed up so I got pulled. And then I only came back to long snapping because my coaches told me that's probably going to help you get into college. So I didn't like it then, but as I saw more and more success, I ended up enjoying it more and more and wanted to work on it more. So I think that's kind of where we got to start. Is like, let's just start somewhere, get a ball, go in the backyard, try it out. I've got a ton of videos on my Instagram that talk about how to do things. There's tips, there's videos of other guys doing it, and I've had a lot of guys message me who I've never been trained to have thanked me for putting out the videos because they've learned a lot. There's obviously a lot more to learn, but if that can get somebody started, that's awesome. So I would say just get started, find a way to get the job done. And then the more you fall in love with it, the more you can put time and effort into this as well. Meaning I'm always available to help. If somebody finds that they really enjoy this, let's get after it. Let's dig into your hands, your body, your follow through, your balance, your efficiency, your control, and make sure that you're on the right track. Because no matter where you are in your career, whether you're a beginner or professional, you're going to have deficiencies. You're going to have blind spots. There's going to be things that maybe are tougher for you to work on. So, actually, this week I had a meeting with one of my snappers who won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady, and now we're working every week to get him back on top of his game and make sure that he's consistently improving. To right now, he's not in the NFL, but he's trying to get back into it. So, you could be at the top, and now you're working to get back in, and there's always little details that you could be working on.
It's hard to believe that that happens, but there's always a younger guy out there that's coming along that doesn't take much to give them that little crack so that they can work their way into it. And next thing you
Yeah,
know, you're out.
younger, cheaper.
Yeah, so cheaper is a big thing, right?
right?
Quick thought here, what's most favorite memory you have working with long snappers? I mean, you just mentioned you work with a Super Bowl champion guy. I mean, hearing the stories come in from them, or seeing the success, or having an all pro guy like there in Indianapolis that you're talking with. What his name was Rhodes, I think you said.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Um, Working with him, is there one thing? There's one memory that stands out that you cherish most over all the other ones.
Yeah, you know what? So going through my entire career, so I've been doing this about 16 years now. I would say any opportunity I get to see these guys in person and see them in action is always a cool moment. And I haven't been able to see the Super Bowl in person or the Pro Bowl in person, but just helping these guys find their path and be a part of that process to get to those moments, I think is the cool part. And then being able to see these guys come to game days and whenever we go, I take my family with me. We go to NFL games where I work with both athletes, one on each team. And it's cool to see them have success, to know each other, to meet each other, and to be able to kind of build a community around this as well, where they're all chasing a similar goal. And we're making sure that these guys are not only getting better on the field, but they're growing as people as well. And I think that's a really cool piece. That probably means the most to me. It's just kind of seeing their outcome overall.
Well, that's awesome. And Kyle, I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule and sharing all this information. And it could be so overwhelming, but I like you mentioned your Instagram there that you can reach out to at Special Teams U on the Instagram, or specialteamsu.com, and get some more information, and check out this long snapping gig. It's a pretty cool thing, and could be a door that's opened for many guys, because they need long snappers out there at all levels. And if you can perfect this trade, you can stick around and make a lot of money doing this thing. It takes some skill and precision, but it's not going to wear your body out. You're not playing left tackle, so it's a lot healthier and easier to do that. I wanted to just tell you thank you so much for a random guy soliciting you over the internet to come and talk here for me. I'm so thankful and grateful for you showing up today and giving me some of your time.
You got it. This was awesome. And one piece for all these guys listening to, if one door closes, the long snapping door might be open. So you never know where it can take you. And I didn't know where it could take me, but it ended up taking me further than I ever thought. And going from hating it in high school to now it is my career that I do full time. Pretty crazy turnaround. So, hey, you never know where life can lead you, and just kind of live and learn and just enjoy that process. So I appreciate you having me on today, Paul. It's been great.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And remember, master the trench and you'll win the war. Have a great afternoon. Hope you're enjoying Trenchometry. Assuming that you are, please hit that like button and subscribe. Remember, master the trench, you win the war.